You learned to stay quiet before you even understood what silence was. Not because you were calm, not because you were mature, but because at some point you realized your voice didn't change anything. So now you call it being easygoing, low maintenance, independent. But if you're honest, it never really felt like a choice. It felt like survival. And the part most people never realize is this: some of the habits you're praised for today are the same ones that slowly made you disappear. One of the most invisible habits is how you don't ask for help, not because you don't need it, but because something in you still believes needing anything is risky. Maybe growing up your needs were met with sighs or delays, or that quiet feeling that you were asking for too much. So you adapted. You became the person who figures everything out alone, the one who says it's fine before anyone can say no, the one who struggles quietly and smiles loudly. People admire that, they call you strong, but they don't see the weight of carrying everything by yourself. They don't see how exhausting it is to never be held the same way you hold others. And then there's the way you apologize for everything, even for things that aren't your fault, even for taking up space in rooms where you belong. Sorry slips out automatically, and maybe you've never questioned it, but that apology didn't start as politeness. It started as protection, because at some point it felt safer to take the blame than to risk someone's reaction, safer to shrink than to be seen. Another pattern you might recognize is how hard it is to understand what you're actually feeling, not because you don't have emotions, but because no one ever really taught you how to listen to them. Maybe your feelings were dismissed, maybe they were ignored, or turned into something inconvenient, so you learned to disconnect, to stay composed, to stay logical, to stay in control. But emotions don't disappear when they're ignored, they just wait. And sometimes they show up all at once in ways that even you don't understand. There's also this quiet habit of over-explaining yourself. You don't just say what you feel, you build a case for it, you justify it, you soften it, you make it easier for others to accept. Because somewhere along the way you were made to feel like your feelings by themselves weren't enough, like you needed proof to be valid. But here's the truth that might feel unfamiliar. You were never too much. You were just too real in an environment that didn't know how to hold you. And this is where it gets uncomfortable. You might feel uneasy when things are calm, when there's no tension, no problem to solve, no emotional distance to manage, because chaos feels familiar. It's what your system learned to understand. Peace, on the other hand, feels uncertain, like something that could disappear at any moment. So without realizing it, you sometimes stay in situations that don't feel right or create small problems just to feel something recognizable, not because you want pain, but because your mind trusts what it knows. Another subtle habit: you don't fully trust compliments. When someone says something kind about you, there's a voice in your head that questions it. Do they really mean that? Are they just being nice? What if they don't see the real me? Because your sense of self wasn't built from within. It was shaped by reactions, by moods, by inconsistency. So now validation feels temporary, and self-worth feels like something you have to earn again and again. And then there's the part of you that takes care of everyone. You notice what people need without them saying it. You sense emotional shifts instantly. You adjust yourself to keep things smooth. It feels like kindness. But if you look closer, it started as awareness, as hypervigilance, as survival. Because as a child, your emotional safety depended on reading the room correctly. So now you carry that skill everywhere. You become the one who holds everything together, but rarely the one who is held. And maybe the hardest thing to admit is this: you don't even know what it feels like to receive without guilt, to rest without earning it, to be cared for without needing to give something back. But none of this means there's something wrong with you. It means you adapted. Every habit you carry, every pattern that confuses you now once protected you. Silence kept you safe, independence kept you stable, awareness kept you prepared. You didn't fail. You survived in a space that didn't meet you where you were. And now your mind is still trying to protect you in a life that no longer requires the same defenses. That's why change feels uncomfortable. Not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels like risk. But slowly something starts to shift. You begin to notice your patterns instead of becoming them. You catch yourself before the automatic sorry. You pause before saying, I'm fine. You sit with a feeling instead of pushing it away. And those moments feel small, almost insignificant, but they're not. They're the beginning of something new because you're allowed to unlearn survival. You're allowed to take up space without explaining why. You're allowed to ask for help without justifying your need. You're allowed to feel without translating your emotions into something more acceptable. And maybe the most important shift is this: you're allowed to become someone who doesn't have to earn their place in the world. This isn't about blaming the past. It's about understanding it so you can finally stop carrying it like it's still happening. Because you're not that child anymore. You're someone who can pause now, someone who can choose, someone who can respond instead of just react. And maybe for the first time you can look at yourself not with criticism, but with the same compassion you've always given to everyone else. Healing won't be loud. It won't happen all at once. It will show up quietly, in the moment you don't apologize unnecessarily, in the moment you say, I need help, and don't take it back, in the moment you let yourself feel without shame. These are small things, but they change everything. Because little by little, you stop being the person who only knows how to survive and you start becoming someone who knows how to live. And maybe this is the realization that was always waiting for you. You were not raised to be yourself. You were raised to be manageable. And healing is remembering you were never meant to be small.